depends how you define local community. I mean, I live in Chelsea right now, and so the struggles that are going on there are very much around issues of gentrification and housing. Like one of the few hospitals and emergency care centers that was in the neighborhood, St. Vincent's Hospital, got shut down last year, and so there's been a large struggle around that and the push for healthcare in the neighborhood. And so that's another struggle. But depending on how you define local, I mean, a few blocks away are the offices of Domestic Workers United, and some people, might know their work. They won a big legislative victory last year by passing a domestic workers' rights bill of law, which basically guarantees domestic workers the same rights, or some basic labor rights that them as well as farm workers had been excluded from since the 1930s. And so that was certainly a major victory, and something that is both local and national and international, of course.
I have a couple in the Hunts Point community. A really big one is our men's and our women's empowerment group, right? And a lot of like, what is a healthy human being? What is a healthy teenager? What are we doing? How do we become a healthier person? And so my young people are building campaigns. Another really big movement is our school food justice campaign here at the Point, where it's literally eating healthier. And that is also a translation to, when you eat healthier, you are a healthier person, and a healthier person communicates more healthy, right? And is a healthier human being all along. So just a holistic approach of healthiness, whether it be literally by eating or by communicating.
Since my release on captivity after 28 years, right, I don't see anything. There's no economic programs going on. I see a lot of talk shows going on. In terms of really helping the people or meeting their basic needs, you don't have those kind of programs. So I say none. You have a lot of motivational speakers, right, but people need financial help, and I don't see that happening in my community.
There's a lot of big farmers' rights movements and supporting local farmers and opposing the factory farming and agribusiness industries. That's really huge in Amherst, and also like sustainable agriculture in particular. Also like neighboring Northampton, which is it's been historically kind of known as a safe space for LGBTQ, lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans and queer people. So the movement there has been big too for that, and that's something I've been involved in. Also, the immigrants' rights movement is something that's been important there. Northampton's been trying to make itself a sanctuary city for Arizona undocumented workers. The Students for Justice in Palestine is a huge group at Hampshire College in Amherst, and that was the first college in the country to divest from Israel, and that made history, and that was a few years ago.
There are a number of social justice movements happening in New Jersey and happening in Newark in particular. There's a large anti-violence movement.
New York City. These past 2 weeks have been really crazy. Occupy Wall Street has been going on. Troy Davis was murdered. He was lynched last Thursday. I was arrested in that protest. Yeah, the Durban 10 conference happened here, where they were basically trying to muffle down a lot of the revolutionary things, a lot of the transformative things that came out of the Durban Conference against racism 10 years ago. So it seems like, it's a groundswell of things happening here. I'm glad that there's a lot of movement. I wish there was some sort of vision, some sort of collective vision, but it's good to see that there's movement. I'm excited about that, and I'm excited that, folks are taking the streets. So I guess that's what's been popping here, that's what's been going on in New York.
More collective and spaces that are open to women and women with children. That's one of the things also that I'm really passionate about. It's like, I take my daughter with me everywhere, and I feel like every space should be open for a mother and child to be able to be together without feeling uncomfortable or feeling like you have to make excuses for you're having a child and being a mother. I think there's so many spaces that are closed to us as moms, and I refuse. You know what I mean? I refuse to be involved in any place that's not inclusive to my daughter. That means that it's not for me. And what does that mean when mothers feel like it's not for them to be somewhere in order to be able to, you know what I mean? Like, how can you participate in your community and your government if you don't feel like you can bring your child wherever, or you got to do something with your kids in order for you to be able to be successful or participate?
I think that we need more resources. We know, especially at this day and age with housing costs, healthcare costs, trying to raise children, like it's very difficult to do that without some kind of a stable job and some kind of a stable income. And unfortunately, there's so few resources in the movement, and specifically resources that are dedicated towards towards activists, not necessarily. I mean, there's nonprofits that certainly have some resources, but talking about activists who are trying to really address some of the core contradictions within let's say the capitalist system.
People need to be moving forward. People need to realize that cops are not your friends, and you cannot have a police inclusive movement. You cannot have a corporate inclusive movement. You need to really hold down what your beliefs are and not compromise. I think that's really what's necessary.
I think actually I need much at this point other than solidarity of the people around me and a safe space where I can, which it is a safe space, but I needed it to remain a safe space so that I can continue to feel comfortable, because if it's not a safe space, then that's when I get silent. That's a double-edged sword. For me, it hurts me and it hurts the movement.
We have so much more access to each other than we did 10 years ago. I think about how there's so much online community, but I think that we really need to be in touch with each other in a physical way. I think about what it means for people to be in a gathering like this and to be really coming across different communities talking about just intersecting issues and challenging the idea that we're separate. So I think actually having more conferences, having more gatherings, and having things really start from the grassroots level as opposed to the experts coming in and saying, this is how it's done. And so often it's not. So often it's really not. And so often that's not what's the most valid or potent thing to do to challenge an issue.
Allowing your passion to push the rest of the agenda. My passion is art, so I do a lot of movement building through murals, through visual pie charts, through drawing, through paintings, whatever it is, but knowing that that's the way I work, and allowing that space for other people to work the same way. If you just share simple techniques, right, to get people started, they'll get really, really excited, because all of a sudden they come out with this thing, right, this object or this this poster or whatever it is, and they'll get excited too, and they really realize how simple change can be.
I need a movement. I came out of what was a real movement, and somewhere in the 80s I felt like I was standing by myself, and that's when some of the U.S. political prisoners and I met. And the U.S. prisoners of war, the old Panthers, the old white radicals, some of the Puerto Rican independence movement people. And they gave my work, a fresh breath and a fresh direction. I think a lot of what is going on now is not movement oriented. And I'll go back to the kids, because unless you're engaging young people, it's that generation, it's your generation. I can stand by and provide whatever support I can. It's my job to stand behind whatever movements develop, but we need a movement.
Mm-hmm.
Colors. We need colors. We need creativity. We need the movement not to look the same way. I feel like a lot of times we get involved in just recreating the wheel and speaking to ourselves, speaking to the choir, just about things that we already know. But I think it would be really dope if we could figure out different ways to connect folks to things that we care about in ways that aren't dogmatic or aren't really, it leaves space for growth, and leaves space for people to make mistakes, and leave space for people to grow and to learn. I feel like, yeah, that's really important, and I feel like if we can, you know, be our full selves in the movement and not just put on our activism hat or like our organizer hat, I think that would mean the most. You know, we could, you know, be our artistic selves, be our sexual selves, you know, be our creative selves. All of those things are, I think, are important for our liberation, and I feel like in order to get free, in order to be free, we gotta be free and actually actualize that and be that. And so, so yeah, I think we need more colors, and we need people not afraid to be themselves and say like, hey, it's okay for you to be yourself, and we care about, this is what we care about.
I like a